everybody, and welcome back to another special edition of the Cosmic History Code. My name is David, of course, and as always, I'm joined by my guide teacher from the Stellar Nations Pathway, the one and only beautiful Leslie Shankman. How are you, Leslie?
I'm good today. We have this
Right, yes.
exciting rash of Cazimis coming up, which is something interesting to
Yeah,
talk about.
so me and Leslie have been peering into our crystal ball and seeing what's coming down the road towards us, and we've entitled this piece "Cazimi Crazy" because we have four Cazimis in a very short a sequence of time, which is actually part of another time wave that we're looking at, which is the final wave spell of this current Tzolkin, which is part of the Mayan solar calendar, and this particular wave spell is the very last one, and it's the yellow magnetic star. And of course, our sun is also a star. So there were a lot of bits and pieces here starting to come through. So me and Leslie did what we always did, started looking at the fixed star cosmology in relation to the Stellar Nations pathway. And as usual, a story wanted to share itself with us. And hopefully today, we're going to try and do our best to relay the story as it feels to us, and hopefully maybe to some of you too, because this is a very powerful time, right, Leslie? We've been tracking the energies for a while. We had the very powerful Manan Kazimi that we did a piece on, plus, of course, that double header of the Yeshua Pluto Cazimi. And we've been tracking these Cazimis for a while now, and I feel that they give us this very potent kind of lens at which to look at what's coming towards us through.
Right. So we have four in March, which makes me feel March 4th,
Um,
meaning we are marching forth with
Marching
a
forward.
very specific set of messages. But the question becomes when we look at these messages, what direction do we want to march in? I think there's no question that we're all marching. The tide is going. But it's quite a choice point, really, and there's very good messages from our stellar, the idea is the stars are worlds. We live there. Our soul particles live there. They're learning concurrently. And when a Cazimi comes up and the sun is conjunct a given planet, the star will have an orb of 2.5 to 4 or even 5 degrees. So we can see that energetic coming through a Cazimi, which is what we're
Yes.
going to do. But also, I'll just herald back to why did we even start doing this early last year, David, when we just
Hmm.
went through so many Cazimis? We realized our sun was going to all the different planets, the first half of last year, especially.
Hmm.
And, the storyline we drew then, and I'll just remind us of this, is that, in the stellar nations cosmology, the sun is an eighth Pleiadian star. It's a fallen angel. It's it fell from its orbit sort of in a rebellious action at the beginning of another Aquarian age because it couldn't quite understand. It was analogous to sort of an adolescent teenage energy. It was being trained for its divine destiny or its fate, which looked like its father's Atlas, which holds the worlds, right? So from his teenage eyes, he was like, "Oh my God, that's so boring. I don't stand there." Uh, but now, over time, he fell out of the Pleiades, was in a large comatose state, eventually got mercy in another age of light, accepted that mercy, and was given the chance to walk back to his divine destiny by establishing our solar system.
Yeah.
And the planets are pieces of his psyche or memories of his Pleiadian family. So
Hmm.
our supposition last year is like, wow, he's kind of adulting now that we're coming into a new
Hmm.
Aquarian age.
Hmm.
He has to re-realize himself, as what did he do with when he was an adolescent, but now, after all this time, coming into a new Aquarian age, new decisions. So we saw those last Kazimis last year as very definite messages as he visited pieces of his psyche or his
I think we
family.
called it going to meet his family, didn't we? There was this series of sort of family meetings that he went to
Right, right, right,
reconcile his differences with his
right.
psyche, his family. We can look at it different ways.
And he was like really adulting, like, I've got to reconsider. Look, I can see what my
Mm.
destiny was. In fact, now that he knows from managing our solar system, you're not standing there inertly. You're literally being like a portal for divine flow of energy, and you're asked to balance it. It's a very fifth dimensional or higher consciousness where it's about uh, the flow of the divine coming through a creation and then that being, your response or holding of it being the experience. So anyway, just as a little background, I think that still comes in now. We're a year later. Things are things are progressing. And I think we can look at these four Cazimis as our sun visiting these planetary bodies, which are kind of pieces of his mind and psyche. Let's look at the messages from the stars today and within that context,
Yeah.
and their frequencies, their real worlds, their things are being learned there. Let's put the slideshow up and we can get going on it. But
Yeah,
I just want a
as you're
little
saying that
context.
review there, Leslie, thank you for bringing that into my awareness again, of course, and everyone else's. But I think when we put this idea out last year, we were sort of in this family meeting. But what I'm getting now is that family meeting was also about devising the plan. We're like, okay, now that we're all coming back together and we're all reconstituting ourselves and becoming whole again, our son is becoming whole again, bringing all of these family members back into his awareness. Then it's like, okay, so what's happened a year later after that family reunion? We can say that repairing of his psyche. It's like, what's the plan? Where did that lead us to? And I think we're at this moment now where we get to see the final chapter of that story unfolding in this part of the sequence. What happens after this? Well, I think that's what's coming for all of us in an exciting
Well,
future. But this feels
yeah,
like the transition point, the choice point, maybe. And choice is a big part of what I think today's presentation is going to be about.
no, exactly. Yeah, I think we have to realize in the nature of the divine flowing through, it's always going to be ongoing and
Yeah,
changing. But
unfolding.
we are agents of that, and we do have choice points. And this is a very potent choice point. You're right. We'll see this from the stellar messages. And I have this slide here because literally these are frequencies. We're all frequency, coming down into different uh, iterations of manifestation. And the choice point is, can we hear them? Can we harmonize them within our being? These stellar frequencies are coming through us, and we're essentially like an instrument. And are we going to be able to harmonize these notes or not? But I think with consciousness, we have a much better chance to do that with the consciousness of what's going on, especially from this stellar level, because this is the aspect of ourselves. It's really our light body. The stars are like the cells of our light body. So we're hearing from the higher aspects of ourselves.
You know what,
So,
also,
okay.
Leslie, I think we said this before, and I still really resonate with this idea that the sun is like the conductor and he's helping to conduct the orchestra, which is our universe. But also, there is a micro and a macro here, so we can be the conductors of our own internal universe with the guidance. So we're always in this fractal kind of mirroring of micro and macro. But also, we were discussing this, myself and Bella, yesterday about the nature of the universal time flow. Well, we've been so programmed to be into a Monday to Friday, 5 days, 2 days, 5 days, 2 days, that we have these days that we call the pause day, which is like a Sunday where we take time out and everything kind of momentarily stops. In universal time, when you're working with the Mayan time codes, it's just a continuous flow. It is more intense. We don't have these breaks, but every day matters. There is no pause to have a day off from work. It's like the work is not the same kind of work as in an office job, but the work is the work of the universe flowing through us, in which we are the conductors of the harmonies and the symphonies. So I love this. I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah, exactly. Although, as I followed the understanding of the Mayan wave spell that you've been putting out, yes, we're constantly on, but we can count on a beautiful rhythmic pattern of
Yes.
unfolding. And as long as we know that and kind of match our energy to it day to day, and I think that's exactly what our son had to realize. And like you
Yeah.
said, it's macrocosm. We're in this solar system, we're on Earth because we actually have the same metaphorical rebellious nature, and we left. Okay.
What
And
can I
so,
say?
yeah, so
Busted.
right, exactly. We're all busted. So, but let's look at it and use it, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. We're part of what we're moving into is realizing how creative everything is and that we're co-creators with it. And we do have a choice on how this goes. And we also have an incredible, beyond choice, we have an incredible lineage or light. I mean, the promise is there, but let's look at the messages and we'll see that come out.
Alrighty.
Okay, so we start with the Saturn Cazimi on March 12th at 22:05 of Pisces. as we just alluded to, Solana, our sun, thought of Saturn in his mind when he set up his solar system as his father Atlas, as this dreaded destiny that he didn't want to take on. But now it's a different story. He's realized. So what do the stellar rays that are coming through want? How could they reflect on this? We'll look at that together. And you might want to say something, Davyd, about the
Yeah, so I mean, the way that we have been putting this together is I tend to look at the charts a little bit, feel into the energies, feel into what this might mean from the perspective of Saturn in Pisces, which we've talked a lot about, the reconstitution of time. There was that Saturn eclipse that happened on the day out of time last year, which was super interesting. And it was almost like from the point of view of Kronos, it's like, I'm tired. I've been holding time for a long time. Of course, he has these issues with his son and everything else. And, what I've been feeling into is that the poor old guy wants to retire. He's like, hey, I've been holding up this world for a long time. And you know what? During the Saturn eclipse back last year, it was like there was an opportunity for us to reconstitute time when Saturn wasn't looking. And so that happened. And we're now into this new timepiece. And since then, Saturn has been rediscovering himself in Pisces, where he's a bit at sea because it's not a natural a natural place for Saturn to feel comfortable. But here in this sequence, the first one is this Saturn Cazimi on the 12th of March, where the sun is kind of going to meet Dad, but also to meet the Lord of Time, to have the discussion about, okay, well, that's all kind of finishing now. That old time sequence of the Monday to Friday, the 1260, the Gregorian. Well, we're moving into a different space and reconnecting to the universal time flow. So it's like this first Cazimi is just reasserting that piece, but also in Pisces, we're talking about this very collective ocean of consciousness, which is directing all of this, which is our collective unity consciousness. So that's kind of just a little heads up, Leslie, about how I'm reading the Saturn Cazimi from the point of view of the energy of Saturn in Pisces, and with the sun illuminating this change in direction, maybe even for Kronos himself. But what are the stars that are coming through this that are going to give us another layer behind this?
Yes, I think so. Okay, let's go. The first one is Zeta Reticuli at 2416 of Pisces, and it has a 2.5-degree orb, so it is coming through. It's in the arthropod soul family. Zeta Reticuli is home of what we might think of as the grays. It's not necessarily a wonderful energy. The arthropod soul family is an incredible stellar soul family. And I should say, everything that we're highlighting, 13 stellar soul families, this is us. That's our galactic DNA. So we know Mother Spider, the web goes through every created thing and set up by the divine to basically capture pictures of what's going on, keeping a kind of an Akashic record, sending information up through the web to the divine source so that it can respond to creation. Oh, this is happening. So it's a beautiful back and forth, but the fallen aspect of the arthropod soul family co-opts that. They misuse the information that comes through the web. And they're very active in the astral. They live on the earth too. But, these are really our spies or informers or secret agent type of energy, the energy that works for the power elite in controlling authority positions. There's a lot of manipulation, particularly now because of the network of electromagnetic frequencies that we have set up. That's their whole it's like they set up the fake grid to pour back on
We
us.
could even call it the anti-grid, the matrix, or in recent
Right.
times, Leslie, we've been referring it to as the anti-Christo grid.
Yes, very much so. Because it's a mind manipulation. Like they've got the inside scope of what are our vulnerabilities, what are our fears. This is all like coming up through the capturing that the lines of light do, not meant to be misused, but it's turned back on us with mind manipulations and fears. Very much a lot of working kind of from the invisible. It's a stabbing in the back kind of energy, a trapping, a blackmailing, intimidation kind of energy. And if we in our galactic history as a consciousness have made some kind of alliance with them, it's kind of like they want to call it back. Now, here's what I want to bring out on this. Two things. First of all, this is a perfect representation of when we're afraid to stay in the flow of renewal in the organic divine matrix, just like nature has, fall comes, the leaves fall out, we restore, we have spring again. This is a representation of a part of us that's been afraid to go into that natural death process. It's an initiation. They haven't taken an initiation. So what happens is, why are they gray, so to speak? Why do they need to pull energy from other things? Because they're
Mm.
not renewing from the organic matrix anymore, and they made a different decision. The second thing I want to say about this
Mm.
is, oh my God, an eagle just flew right over.
Beautiful. That's a good
Oh my God,
sign.
literally right into my window.
The bird nation are here.
Okay. Um, okay. Uh, the other thing I want to say about this is, um, sorry, I'm catching the eagle. This is going to be very fooling to us. There's a very deep intelligence about this, because it's an incredible matrix. Think chat GPT now, right? It's very beguiling. It's not necessarily wrong, that we can get all this information, but we're at such a choice point of choosing. If we become impressed and have an alliance to this kind of intelligence and what it can do for us, without we can't let it be our total source of information. It's just a
Yeah.
tool of ours, because what's going to happen, I mean, there's no light in it, is basically what I want to say. And I
Yeah.
think we're at a choice point now, and this kind of highlights some of our tricky waters with working with AI, but also I heard someone say, let's work with DI, divine intelligence. And we can still have artificial intelligence, but within the frequency of our knowing that it's our divinity, and we're using these tools in that way. Anyway, that's enough for what I want to say on this. What would you want to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, the picture is very clear here. We also been using the term nature intelligence as a way of connecting to particularly the energies of Deneb Adigi and some of these other very sort of tree nature spirit stars and energies that many of us feel. But what I'm getting from this, Leslie, is really interesting, because this is coming through the filter of Saturn in Pisces, and Pisces is a lot about illusion and delusion. Saturn is about structure. And you're absolutely right. When I feel into the energy of this, I get three-letter agencies, I get blackmail, I get videotapes, I get spying, I get manipulation, mind control, MK Ultra. It's a pretty nasty scrapbook, we can say, of all of these kinds of things. And what I'm getting here is it's enough of this manipulation, but also, you know, there is an aspect here of like, what is it that you're hiding that you don't want people to see? Why would you be afraid of being surveilled? Because from a fifth dimensional perspective and above, we have no density or shadow to hide, really. So what is it that we're afraid of that might get revealed? So yes, this is completely invasion of privacy. Blackmailing, of course, is a big part of what has been running the world. We know that most of the governments of the world have been run using blackmail from exactly this kind of technology, people being filmed in secret doing nefarious acts that they're then blackmailed with. This is how the world has been run, everybody, for a very long time, and it's about to come to an end. It may even start coming to an end in the coming days with many revelations. All of this is using this technology. And of course, behind this, there are these gray beings, which, you know, Leslie, you might have a view on this, which I'll put you, but I'm not sure. Some people think that the grays are perhaps humans of the future that go down a particular road where they cut off their ability to regenerate naturally. And so they become much more vampiric in nature. So there is also something here, if we think about that perspective, and maybe why many of these beings are still playing up in this moment, that they're fearing for their own future. Because if we go down a different road now, they don't technically get to exist in the future, at least not in the form that they're currently in. They have the choice now to go down a different road and not become the Greys, maybe become something more elevated, a different type of arthropodic energy. So I just wanted to put that in as a counterbalance, because yes, I don't like all of these energies. I think they're quite unpleasant and we've been living under them. But at the same time, this is duality, and there's also another perhaps higher purpose that we can look at.
Yeah, and I think we have to remind ourselves. Now, I would buy into that, but we remind ourselves this is not out there. This is an
It's,
aspect
it's
of our own
amazing.
being.
Yes.
This is what it looks like when we don't take an initiation. And the danger point right now is we can get a feeling with what they're offering of kind of intellectual superiority because through the methodology that they use.
Um,
And it's just dangerous. It's tricky. There's no light in this, like you said. And it is interesting to
no.
think that maybe some part of ourself in the future, so to speak, is afraid to let go, which this goes to our next star. Uh,
Yeah. And also, you know what, Leslie, it's something here that I've heard people say before is like our conscience maybe is being literally photographed by Great Mother Spider all the time. And what is it that we're doing when we think nobody is watching that we'd rather nobody got to see?
Yeah, there's that, but there's kind of innocence and learning. This is really mean manipulation. This is taking things and expanding doubt. I mean, they can throw back in
It's
with
true.
mind programs, a little doubt, a little vulnerability. They can expand it out until you're literally shriveled in
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean,
Fear, doubt
these are the
about
guys
yourself.
that do, MK Ultra mind experiments. They put implants into us, programs, microchips. It's not
Yeah,
nice. There's nothing nice about this. I'm just
yeah.
trying to throw a little bit of a counterbalance because, otherwise we can say these guys are bad and that's it. And we put them into that box and then we reject that part of ourselves. And as you said, we have to bring this back to ourselves. We carry this DNA within us. We carry the beautiful energies of Great Mother Spider, but we also have some of these more nefarious beings who perhaps also themselves have been hijacked by another type of force that specializes in psychological warfare, particularly against humans. It's a bit like the War of the Worlds, right? They sat and they
Right.
waited and they watched us and they got to know us and then they attacked. It's like this is part of the galactic story, and these guys have been a big part of how we've been controlled. So this is the piece of the Cazimi through Saturn. Let's combust this method of control. Let's bring this technology into light because a lot of this technology can be used for incredible things, including the AI. And I
Exactly.
completely agree with you. It doesn't feel to me like it's got any light. It's an incredible aggregator of information that's on the web, but is it able to tap into soul information? I don't see that currently.
Yeah, well, the other thing just to mention that's kind of in the background here, the fall of the arthropods has a lot to do with those who left the nation felt like victims. And it's a whole bigger story. But
Yeah,
so there's a whole victim energy that's inside of us. This is part of what we have to let go. This is what
important.
has created this energy. And it's ironic because they joined the shadow forces of the male serpent shadow, the dragon's shadow, the angelic shadow. They've always been kind of uh, lower class citizens. They can never make it. The victim, when you have that auric energy around you, you're going to get victimized again. They're only useful to that what they can give those beings, and then they're kind of dispensable. They've never really had their time in the light. So it's kind of interesting because a lot of the other shadow forces are finding kind of they wanting to go towards the redemptive light energy. They're sort of emptying out some of the dark of the astral. You've
Yes.
got the arthropods here now a little bit more in control, like, oh wow, we had the playground's ours now, and it's just a tricky thing because yeah, this is a really deep inner understanding we need to have. We need to, yeah,
Which I think
let
is why it's so important. We've got this Cazimi on it in this moment, as this is literally about to explode into everybody's awareness. Not only is it a form of manipulation in the ways we've just talked about, Leslie, but this is the control of the media flow. This is
oh God, yeah,
propaganda through
everything.
media.
Yeah, no,
This
that's
is how
all the
our
arthropodic.
history has been
Yeah, yeah,
given to us is through arthropodic propaganda machines, whether it's rewriting of history books, the TV,
yeah,
box
yeah,
sets, the
yeah.
news. It's all part of the same piece, right?
Oh, it's such a beautiful nation. They're the engine of evolution because they show us what's going on.
Yeah,
But in the mu misuse of it, they're the engine of devolution. So, but we're at a choice point with that.
yeah.
So, all right,
Mm.
let's go on because it only gets more fun. When I say fun, I mean like, how can you not say we live in a divine intelligence when you see what's coming through?
Okay.
Um, so the next one, Karja. Uh,
Mm.
This is it's in the bird soul family, which is that has to do with our relationship to the earth, knowing that we're co-creators with all the elementals, and they're great messengers to us, reflecting our consciousness to us. Karja's in the Phoenix constellation. It's the mystery of initiation into letting go. It's the fire and death of letting go. It's like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, and there is absolutely no choice but to jump. And it's so fearful, and we can take so long not doing it. The interesting thing about this mystery is when we jump, and it's a big free fall, and it's scary, it puts the mind and body through so much. But at some point, the way the galaxy or the universal laws work, the divine laws work, hands come up and we start falling up instead of down. It's the only way we go into renewal. But as you and I were talking about, what are we letting go of? And I liked your take on what we were letting go of.
You want me to share?
Yeah, no, I do, because I think
Okay.
when I first came across the star, many years ago, and I'm thinking, oh, what do I have to let go of? My family, my car, my possessions? I was seeing it so materially, more 3D, and I'm like, well, what's that mean? It's something, it's different. What
Yeah,
are we letting go of? We need to know what we're letting
letting
go of. We
go.
need to make a decision to do that.
Well, a lot of my personal approach to this, Leslie, has come through my years of being a Buddhist student and being told that all of our suffering comes from two major principles, attachments and aversions. And if we're making decisions based on those external factors or stimuli, particularly in attachments, it's like if I'm making a decision that's based on potentially losing money or potentially losing face or potentially losing somebody's attention, then I'm not being sovereign. I'm not. I'm basically not able to let go of my attachments. We can say the same is true of aversions. I don't want to look at this. It's something that's difficult for me. I don't want to look at the truth. I don't want to look at the things we just talked about from the manipulation of the media. So when we have to let go of these, it's not that we necessarily have to let go of the use of our computer screens, or we have to let go of our family members, or even let go of our finances. But what we need to let go of is the attachment to those things being the director of our decision making. Yes, I want to keep all of these things in my life, but if they go away from me, is it going to be the end of my world, or is it going to force me to evolve? That's how I look at it. And for me, that's a much more dynamic way of working with these energies, because whenever I've been forced to let go of some of those things, it's not that they go away out of my life, and quite the opposite. In fact, they come back in a new way, with me being much more sovereign in their attitude, but also the other person or the other aspect of the situation always comes back into my life in the same way. So there's this kind of rebalancing, and it's not that they've gone out of our lives completely, although sometimes we have to let go of some things because they're not serving us at all in their format. But sometimes it's our attachment to those things that we need to let go of. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well
Yes,
enough?
it does. And I would add to that when I think of attachments, um, the definition of our own self, which is kind of driven by our ego, I think it's a redefining of what our ego, the use of our ego. I think that we if we can use our ego to create the strength or the structure that allows us to run the divine frequency, to be in the flow of creation. So it's not like we're letting go of our ego, but heretofore we've used our ego really to, this is me, this is me. No, I define this. No, I want this. No, you can't say I'm not that.
Right.
We move out, or we it keeps us on a level of reacting, trying to keep ourselves
Well,
defined
it's
in a
it's
certain way.
dualistic, polarized responses to stuff, right? And I think that the ultimate letting go that we have to do is letting go of the attachment to the persona that we've either
Exactly.
created
That would
for
be a
ourselves
better
or
way
that
to
we've
say it.
adopted. Because in that letting go, what actually we do is we allow the universe to remind us of the holistic nature of our soul, which is so much bigger than this kind of
Yeah,
small 3D, 4D version that we've been programmed to believe is all that there is. And so when we let go through the process of the phoenix, the transmutation, it's the kind of, I said it to you before, Leslie, it's the moment where we drop to our knees and surrender to God. I can't do anymore. That's it. Whatever you've got for me, just take me there. I surrender to the divine plan. And God goes, finally, great, we can do the
right.
real work
Yeah,
that you
yeah, yeah.
came here to do
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this life. But it's that kind of moment where you have to drop to your knees and say, I surrender. I'm prepared to even die, to let my personality die so that I can be reborn in all of the glorious holistic nature of who I truly am.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's really it's that persona thing that we've been so identified
Yeah.
with. And that's why it feels like the free fall, because it's
Yeah.
like absolutely I'm nothing. It's the void. But
It's the
the
abyss
interesting
moment.
part is, you know, there's it's from another teaching part of the Stellar Nations. Um, every time we sort of we switch frequencies through the perceptual filter of what we might call dimensions, just different manifestations of frequency. There's like a little pause or void point. And we can't get caught there thinking that that's where we're going to fall. I mean, we just need to know there's a little pause, like adjustment point. And I think that kind of plays in here because what happens if we pull in on the fear and don't really do the surrender into what the bigger truth is. And you see, that's where like the Zeta Reticuli and the arthropods we're so vulnerable if we
Mm.
let ourselves be in those fear places. This is such an initiation of faith and trust. You really have to look forward to knowing that there's a bigger intelligence, a divine light you're part of, and you're actually. It's so funny because that's why the arthropods rebelled. The males actually got eaten at a point by the feminine, the queen, and they
Mhm.
became part of the light, the web of light that they were sustaining. So it's like, and they couldn't do it. Oh, I'm not going to die that way. In a way, it's kind of like asking us to do that, like to become part of something, some part of
Mm.
light unfolding that we don't have any understanding of yet, but we're not going to know until we actually,
So I've written here on my page, as you were saying that in capital letters, trust. This is a
yeah,
trust moment where you have to trust in your higher self's divine plan and thus in God's divine plan for you. And you're right, like, if we think about the Great Mother Spider story and the reason the males rebel because they didn't want to be consumed after, you know, um, procreating with Great Mother Spider. And what they were missing out on was that in that act of surrender to Great Mother Spider, they get to return to the energy of the goddess because Great Mother Spider is the crone aspect of the goddess. And so there's a rejection of the goddess energy, there's a rejection of the heart energy because of fear. Fear that I'm going to be
exactly.
consumed by something that then doesn't allow me to be me anymore. Not understanding that with trust and letting go of the fear, that you actually go back to your much more expansive self. And so those two words, trust and fear, particularly with the arthropods, they through the mind control, they work on fear. They try to keep us in that place of fear because that's where they're stuck. They're also afraid.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and you know what? We can't even know what would be next. Like you think you're going to be this amorphous, like floating piece of the light, and well, that's no fun. Well, I don't have an identity. We don't know what creation has in mind for us.
Right,
So
exactly. And I think that that is the fear, right? That's this is, oh, I'm just going to be like some floating piece of dust that doesn't really do anything. And I totally get that. I think I thought like that for a while too. But once you've kind of gone across the veil and you've trusted and fallen into the abyss or the void, the place beyond this life, and you've come back in the resurrection. And it's interesting, this is all in the lead up to Easter as well, right? And of course, the equinox and many other things. But once you've kind of gone through that process, you realize that being conscious in this body or being conscious outside of this body is actually the same thing. You kind of have a very different perspective on things, and you realize that, oh my gosh, the return to sources, the return to the fullness of myself and the total connectivity of all that is and everything that is it within all that is. And that's a glorious experience. And
right.
somehow, sometimes down here in 3D, we can tap into that through meditation, but also through letting go and trusting that there is a much bigger universe that we can jump back into, which I think is super
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, and I think what we're attached to without realizing it is the persona that's created by the drama of duality back and forth, back and
Yeah.
forth. We define our reality by like uh this response in these little microcosmic worlds with people and but you know how dramas can turn it when we move out of the duality of the third dimension into what we're talking about being more agent for flow, it's going to be a different picture. I heard
Right.
Matthias say at one point, he goes, well, yeah, I mean, you could think it's kind of boring because, we're so used to the definition of intrigue and back and forth. Anyway, let's continue. I
Yeah.
think we've got that one sort of.
Yeah.
All right. So
Mm.
now we have one more star coming through the Saturn now. And this is Markab. It's a seventh dimensional world in the Pegasus soul family. It's got a 4-degree orbit, 2350 of Pisces. Um, Markab is actually like right on the back, kind of at the where the wing attaches to the Pegasus and the Pegasus constellation. And it's literally the cradle of creation or the star of birth of this nation or this part of ourselves. So, what is this part of ourselves? This is the Pegasus part of ourselves is the messenger who is very close to the divine mind, can hear um, kind of the divine mind calling and recognizes, oh, I'm an agent of the divine. I want to hear this message. The divine then gives us kind of an assignment. It gives us a living seed of news, if you will, that it wants us to deliver somewhere to other people, to another world. I mean, this is galactically, but this is in our own lives too. This is micro and macro. And so literally we're asked to take this flame of light, if you will, as a living seed of the divine might that we're asked to plant somewhere. But as we go from one, from the divine mind to whatever aspect we're going to, that flame like leaves a line of light. It actually starts building like the meridians that create an understanding in creation that all these supposedly separate parts, because we're living in our own little worlds developing, they're connected. It's a growing awareness that we're one cohesive, bigger light body. And the Pegasus is a very, very trusted part of ourselves because we're basically given the secret sacred keys to all the dimensional passages. When we're sent out by the divine with this living seed of news, this flame of living news, I call it, we have to get through all kinds of morphogenic fields to go into different worlds. And Pegasus have a wonderfully fluid plasticine quality. It's a little more spirit than matter, this part of us. Kind of
Mm.
can just adapt into what do we need to be energetically to be blending into where we're delivering this living flame of divine news. I do want to say one more thing about this. Now I'm forgetting, so I'll give you a chance to weigh in here, but it'll come back.
Well, I mean, I love the energy of the Pegasus nation in general. It speaks to my Skywalker self. And when I listen to what you're just saying now, I think of the intimate connection between Great Mother Spider and the control of the web of life, the web of the universe. And of course, the Pegasus are the masters at traveling the web. And, maybe this is for some of the sci-fi geeks out there, but one of the more recent seasons of Star Trek, they use this thing called the Spore Drive. Which is basically accessing the universal mycelium network, which I think is super cool. I love that idea. We've been talking about it during the free trees in relation to the tree roots. But the way I feel with my Pegasus self is I'm able to skywalk through the universe by using the nodal points on the web, a bit like the spore drive. So I drop out at one point and using my fixed attention, I pop out somewhere else on the web instantly. I don't have to go for a long journey. And I kind of feel this is the Pegasus part of me that's able to travel the web with all of these codes which are within me, which I've been able to access, partially because I'm hardwired that way because of my mind glyph. But also that's a part of me that feels natural to do that. And I think that this link between the arthropodic nature and the Pegasus is really, really important because this is a skill that's open to all of us, and yeah, I kind of that's how the connection
Yeah, no,
seems
you
to me.
got it there because I think a big part of you does live that by your design. It's a big part of your galactic DNA.
Hmm.
And, the other thing, I mean, Pegasus are masters of, well, portals,
Portals.
but we could call them time portals. You just called them nodal points. That's a good way to put it. Time isn't really existent in the same way. It's existent in the third dimension, past, present, future, and it needs to be for our experience and learning. But the Pegasus is dealing very much in this fluidity of a very easy crossing of the dimensional gates to go into here or there where it's called. And in fact, I know what I wanted to say. They talk in the book about the Pegasus being created on the third cosmic day. And they said without this Pegasus part of ourselves that can make these connections and deliver the divine mind to all these different parts of creation, uh, that the angels and the unicorns couldn't do their jobs. The unicorns are the part of us that dream and create and make things come into manifestation. The angels are that part of us that are so in touch with the divine mind, and they're kind of the arms and legs of the divine, shepherding it, holding the divine laws in place. That's all fine. Those are wonderful jobs, if you will. But they said, you need to have this network that's connected, that we understand we're part of something bigger, so that creation of the unicorn can come about. It has a context, and the angels are holding something that has a context. So it's a beautiful nation. Let's talk about it coming through Saturn. I mean, you were I think we need to bring it back to
So yeah, we've got these three stars coming through this first Cazimi, and we have a couple other stars, which the other three Cazimis are all ticking through the different Cazimis of Neptune, then Venus and Mercury, and we'll come to those in a second. But this is kind of setting the scene for the unfolding of what is happening here. And I also understand, Leslie, that at least from my own meditations, that in the original fall or series of falls that happened in the universe that helped create this third and fourth dimension that we're living in, which is all part of the great design, but the original hijack, let's just say it like that, happened at the seventh dimensional level and then kind of fell down through the dimensions, bringing many of these big dragons and angels and other beings down into this realm where we've all been existing. But here's a thought that's come to me, right? With the Pegasus access to these secret and sacred keys, if that was accessed by these arthropodic beings, that would have given them also the access to all of the web, but not necessarily in the way that the Pegasus were using it, but maybe for a more infiltrated way. So I think that there is some element of redemption here, maybe for a more hidden aspect of the Pegasus that feels responsible, that somehow it gave up these keys at some point and they've been used against us. Now, I can't say that for certain, but that's how it feels to me, because when we look at the arthropod energy of Zeta Reticuli, it's very much of that energy wanting to infiltrate, to manipulate, to control through the use of portals and nodals and timelines and all of these other things.
It sees it. It has that access essentially too, because the spider lines of light go through everything that's created, because everything that's created wants to be surveyed by the divine. But that kind of surveillance is loving and responsive. It's not misused.
Right, so we have these three stars. Just to recap, we have the arthropodic star of surveillance and manipulation, the grey, Zeta Reticuli, generally not a hugely uplifting frequency. Then we have the energy of Kjara, which is saying, hey, it's time to let go. It's time to be sovereign and not be manipulated, to let go of the things actually that are manipulating us. Even if we're attached to certain technologies that we know are spying on us and doing all of these things, then we're also complicit in the fact that we're allowing those things to happen. Maybe we need to break those attachments. And then we've got this Pegasus nation, which is really the heart in many ways, or the denomination of these beings that can travel the universe. But also we can see how all of these three things are being tied together in the structure of Kronos or Saturn or of the Father. And it's like, okay, all of these things now need to be restructured, because we don't want the great web of life of the universe of Mother Spider to be something that is used against us as a manipulating tool to surveil us, at least not in the sense that the arthropods do, which then gets used, we can say, in 3D by three-letter agencies and blackmail. So I think, Leslie, this is the first. It's time to bring an end to that level of web. We can even say the anti-web, the anti-grid, all of which is being controlled by these negative alien agendas, we can say, or even grey agendas. And the Pegasus are part of this because they travel the web. Mother Spider is the holder of the web. But of course, that's all reflected down here on planet Earth, both within the noosphere, both within the Christo grid and the nature intelligence grid, which is the trees and mycelium. So I think that what we're really seeing now is the opportunity to combust the anti-grid and restore it into a newer form where the arthropods can assist with their incredible technology. That's the thing about these guys. They have incredible technology, the ability to link and connect us and to interface
Yeah,
with things that are going to make our life easier, which is great. But we don't want those to be something that then manipulates us into being slaves, which is what we've had.
right.
So I think this is my summing up of the first hit. Do you have a thought on that?
I think that's a good synopsis. And I also would just say, uh, when we say seventh dimensional, we're talking about that's where we're experiencing, uh, say reality, I don't know what to call it. We're experiencing things in terms of frequency, just sound frequency. All
Yes.
these records that I'm talking about, these stellar records, come from the seventh
Yeah.
dimensional star Antares, where the
You were
Akashic records of the Milky Way galaxy are kept. So we've got this Pegasus kind of telling us that there's a frequency, that we are frequency, and that we have ability to uh, have our consciousness on different levels of frequency, especially the Pegasus going in and out of these portals. They're literally going into different expressions of, as frequency changes, it can turn into manifestation, like sixth dimensional level. It turns into a morphogenic energetic form that is the basis of what happens in the third dimension. I don't want to get too obtuse here, but what I'm saying is,
No, I get it.
yeah, we have a lot more control. I think what we're going into, like when we talked about the arthropods being afraid to die into the light, or us afraid to trust and fear, we're
Mm,
going into a broader understanding that we are frequency and the ability to be very fluid with it, because
yes.
then that puts us closer to the divine and the divine mind, and being agents of creation, and being this portal for flow, like being what the divine destiny of our sun was, what Atlas does. Um, okay, I'll leave it.
Absolutely. You know what? And you just said something that really resonates with me there, which is that in my meditations, I work a lot with music and I have like playlists that allow me to access my seventh dimensional self through the use of sound. If I didn't have the sound, it would be very difficult for me to do that. So it's the sound that actually opens up the portals for me. And so I work a lot with different types of music and sound in meditations, which then kind of fades into the background. Once that part of my consciousness has got activated, I then go skywalking or, journeying, we can say, in the seventh dimensional realms. And it is the realm of frequency. So when people say, oh, but this looks like some sort of Disney character, what we're actually tuning into is the seventh dimensional frequency of the Pegasus, where if we're in meditation, we may get visuals of Pegasus beings. And that's how I understand the frequency is interpreted by my own inner lexicon, which is my own Pegasus self. So when I see a Pegasus or I see a cat or I see a dragon, I know that it's that part of my own frequency spectrum that wants to speak to me. And so it's like
Right,
if I go into meditation and dragons appear, I know that my dragon self wants to communicate something either from its perspective or from the perspective of the
right.
dragon nation that it's a part of. And the same is true of the Pegasus.
Yeah, and exactly. And the thing is, you literally have soul particles in those different stellar worlds, experiencing
Yes.
those frequencies simultaneously.
Yes.
We have our two-strand DNA that keeps us kind of here in the physical and in linear time, but we have five pairs of ethereal DNA that are working in the let's call it multidimensional spectrum. It's not bound by time. And we're starting to bring those together again.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's the relationship of our physical DNA and our etheric DNA that literally creates our sense of time and space. But if we bring in a lot more of our etheric DNA, we expand all that out. And that's our true nature. That's our what would it be? That's our I
Our
forget.
true holistic nature, we can say our true essence.
Yeah, but it's our promise, it's our heritage, it's what we
Ah,
are. It's what we've been in this creation cycle, we've been asked to discover and know that. And the way that we've been asked to do it is by experiencing the depth of shadow so that we could understand the the polarity of the light that we actually are.
yeah.
So yeah, okay. Let's keep Okay, let's go forward, and I think we've laid a foundation. We can be a little more quick, especially because a lot of the stars are now going to repeat, but through different lenses of different planetary lenses. So now we come to a Neptune Cazimi on March 19th at 2936 of Pisces.
Mm,
And Oh,
It's the
mighty
very
one.
powerful anaretic degree. It's literally the last degree of the zodiac. It's the ending of the endings, but also the gateway to the beginning of the beginnings. And Neptune in Pisces, of course, is very at home. We have this beautiful image here I love on the right of Neptune sitting in his underworld, in his fallen underworld watery realms. I think that really Neptune is the lord of Atlantis and was given that job when Atlantis fell beneath the seas, and he's been sat there ever since. I've sometimes said that Neptune for me represents one of the serpent family, Enki, the fish-tailed being. That's open to speculation, and we can all deep dive into that ourselves. But when I look at Neptune in the 29th degree of Pisces, Leslie, I get the end. That's to
Yeah,
me,
yeah. No, no, it is. And
it's the end.
yeah, from our sun's perspective in setting up Neptune in the solar system, it was kind of a dream channel back to the other side of
Yeah.
the veil to whatever he needed to remember at a given time. Sometimes it was glorious. Sometimes it wasn't so easy.
No.
But depending where
And that's the
Neptune was.
interesting thing about these Cazimis. The first two we're looking at take place in the latter degrees of Pisces, and the other two we'll look at in a minute are in the new rebirth sign. We can almost say of Aries, but getting ahead of
Yeah,
ourselves here. Let's have a look at the stars that are coming through this Cazimi with Neptune.
yeah. Well, that's good to point out because that's the dynamic here,
Yeah.
ending and beginning, which you said. All right, now we have another Pegasus star. I absolutely love this star. Oh my God. This is a cosmic receiving screen. If we hear, there's a whole sacral process. Uh, Pegasus beings have a home star of Mirror, which is a beautiful world, watery world. They're very fluid in and out of the world. Water, dolphins and whales live there. It's just a beautiful place. But when the divine mind has a message that needs to go out into creation, it's like a little bell rings from Scheat, and it's felt on Mirok. Now, Pegasuses are just receiving this, as energy, and there's like, oh, I have a resonance with that mission. I'm going to fly up to see Scheat and get that. I'm going to go in. So you come into the world of Scheat. It's like this huge screen, and it's the divine mind showing you what this is what I want you to do. And it's giving you that mission, and you automatically sort of, in your plasticine nature, your energy field just becomes what it needs to be to go into whatever world you're being sent to. Um, if we put it in the third dimension, maybe you were at work and you're asked to be a certain kind of character and you have to deliver a certain message, but you have to put on a certain persona to do that so you don't freak people out. It's just very practical as well as.
Yeah.
Um, so it's the receiving screen for divine messages, and the beautiful thing on the walls of Scheat, there's all these keys and all these symbols and symbols of light. Um, there you basically look up and like, what do I need? What key do I need? What holographic form or geometric form do I need to travel out on this mission and get through the morphogenic field that is surrounding where I need to go in? Like literally, you know, bodies of everything, planets, stars, people are surrounded by grids that hypothetically you shouldn't be able to breach. Uh, but you're literally getting the permission. You don't have to break through to this world. The divine is saying, here, take the keys so you can go through peacefully and show up. And, very often it's hard for a Pegasus because the main mission is to plant the seed. You don't always get to see it come to fruition. That's a whole other story. But anyway, this is what Scheat is about. It's like receiving the divine messages. And now this is coming through Neptune. So it's kind of like us remembering, wait a minute, wait, we can ask. There's a bigger source, there's a bigger place. Maybe there's a bigger purpose to what we're about. So anyway, I'd say that much. What would you put in on this?
Well, I think I'm just going to let us roll into the other stars a second. But of course, the Pegasus, we tend to think of Pegasus as being very air beings, but they also have this kind of very watery nature too, because they share their home planet with a lot of water and with the dolphin beings and the whale beings. And so I think that because I was just thinking to myself, a Pegasus star in the 29th degree or the anaretic degree of Pisces, and oh, of course, but the Pegasus are very watery. We talked about this with Manannan McClear, and he's a very kind of Pegasus being, or his horse Anvar is a very Pegasus being, but he is very very much similar to Neptune. So there's a very kind of synonymous energy, in fact, with this aspect here of
Yeah.
the Lamb and McClure, who we did
Yeah.
this piece on a week or so ago. So let's roll on to the next star, Leslie,
Yeah.
and see how the story wants to build
Elementally,
itself.
air and water. You're right. Very
Yeah,
Gemini messenger analogy.
yeah.
Okay. So the other star we have here is Diptha Deneb. It's on the tail of the
Mm.
Cetus constellation. Deneb means tail in Arabic. Um, Two nations come through this. The Dragon Nation, which is the warrior nation part of us that stands up for divine will, guards divine will. When a dragon part of us goes out on a mission to uphold divine will and sees Deneb in the sky, it's interpreted as a protective, lucky talisman for an indication that you're going on a mission where victory is almost assured, especially when it's conjunct Mars, Jupiter, or the Sun. We're talking about a Cazimi. It's conjunct here. Okay. So we're getting from Neptune, like Solana's dream channel back. Wow, this is possible to have victory in this change or movement. Now, the second soul family or aspect of us that comes through Diptha is the whale nation. And this is part of just a quick backstory. Um, Fallen angels, fallen beings are often given a timeout in the galactic chamber of mirrors, Beta and Katos, that is in the belly of the Cetus constellation. And the backstory is the angels were literally there, like frozen into rock. And they finally kind of started realizing, oh my God, what spell did I come under that I thought that I wanted to leave the divine matrix? Why did I leave my destiny? And
Mm.
so there's this deep yearning cry, which might even be thought of as analogous to whale
Mhm.
sounds. And then in response, mercy comes because mercy, you have to realize there's four major divine principles: divine love, divine law, divine mercy or grace, and divine will. And mercy is redemption. It's the redemptive river that goes through everything. Like the Creator says, I will always give you mercy if you'll surrender and let me pick you up, like the Karja. So these angels finally just surrendered, and mercy came, and they were born out of the tail, out of Diptha. But they were born into the form of the light body of a whale. And their assignment became for their sounding, which was completely in conjunction with the divine mind again. They're back with the divine mind, totally compassionate beings because they realize what it is to fall and to have to find your way and to have to go through the humility of surrendering. Still a little bit of penance as they're making their way back. It's like us metamorphosizing. We're starting out. This is the starting out on the bridge of redemption and ascension. So this is what we have being remembered through the dream channel of Neptune from the perspective of our sun. We have victory can happen. I've been reborn. I've accepted mercy, or I can, and this is what will happen. And then also the Scheat star. I can't, there's a divine mind is giving me messages all the time. And I have a bigger purpose.
So
Anything to
that,
say before we go
yeah,
to
there
the
are a couple of things that are coming to me really clearly from that. So when I think about Shiad, it's almost like there's the interface of what lies beyond the Hall of Mirrors. It's like, okay, you've surrendered, you're ready to be released from Beta and Katos, which, by the way, is still being conjuncted directly by Chiron. Transiting Chiron is still right
we've
on
been like
top.
squeezed. We have been
Yeah.
squeezed. The collective is squeezed. Remember, these messages are for the collective coming through the Cazimi. It's not an
Yes.
individual chart. Yeah.
Exactly. So, when I feel into this, it's like, okay, you've surrendered, you're going through the full combustion process of Kjara, literally transmuting all of yourself, rising like the phoenix from the ashes. But what comes next? Well, here you go. Here's God's great computer board. It's like, okay, type in your coordinates, and wherever your divine plan wants to take you, you can go there. That is the reward that is on the other side of the Hall of Mirrors. And when we step through that kind of interface of Scheat, we step into this world of Diptha, which if we're on a, excuse me, on a dragon mission, maybe is going to take us into the world of repairing the morphogenetic fields, which is what the whales are good at. But also what I get from this kind of aspect of the angels is finally they're being released from the spell. I love that because we've all been under a big spell down here on planet Earth, which is what we all agreed to come in to break. And that spell in recent times has been actually upheld by the anti-grid, by the arthropod. So we've just got rid of that piece with the Saturn Cazimi. We then come into this Neptune Cazimi, which is all about the illusion, the watery depths, the things that we don't want to see. Neptune is the king of the hidden, really, the lord of the watery depths. And he's saying, okay, enough is enough. We're in the final moment here, and it's time to release yourself. And here is the interface to do that. And if you step through that, well, then you're going to be released from Denob Catos with this lucky talismanic star. So I think it's beautiful, Leslie. It seems like a very
It is.
clear progression,
Yeah.
you know?
Now this is interesting. We don't have to talk about too many more stars. We've talked about the stars that are
These are
coming
the
through.
stars, right?
Right. We have Venus Cazimi, March 22nd, Aries 239. And if you want to say anything, well, I'll say Venus in Solana's mind is representation of his beautiful sister Electra in her deep purity. Um, and it's also kind of his ideal of, if he's a masculine being, of the ideal feminine counterpart. So there's also sort of that promise of like bringing back the true relationship and complementarity of the masculine and feminine, or the god and the goddess here. But go ahead. I mean, that I'm just putting Venus out as the lens potentially that way through our son's mind. But you will want to say something.
Yeah. So this is interesting point about this. Really, the Saturn Cazimi picks up a bunch of different stars, but then we have this series of the Neptune Cazimi in the final degree of Pisces. Then this Venus Cazimi happens quite quickly afterwards, just a few days, in fact. But now the emphasis, and this is where I think it gets interesting, the energy is shifted from the more collective piece to the more individual. So we've gone from the ocean of collective consciousness now to a much more empowered, hopefully sovereign, holistic sense of self, a new elevated higher octave of Aries, which is I am, but I am in the collective of we are. And I think that that's
Yes,
much more
beautiful.
exciting. And so, what maybe comes through initially at the collective level then comes down to the personal level, where these choice points is like, okay, we see what's happening for many brothers and sisters across the planet. There is a collective surge. But am I stepping up? Am I doing this process? Am I
Exactly.
still resisting it? Am I wanting to be in the world of illusion, wishing I was still back in Neptune, where I can hide behind something in the watery depths? Or is it fully in my awareness now where I don't have any choice? But we have this beautiful energy of Venus, which says, get into the heart, be in your heart as an elevated human, maybe even as a newborn cosmic human, and things might start to look differently. So I feel a great upsurge of hope and revitalization when I look at this Venus Cazimi, which is basically picking up the same stars as the Neptune
Yeah,
Cazimi,
let's
but it
go. It
has a
has the
different
exact
energy.
same stars. It has Scheat.
Yeah,
So it has Diptha coming through the dragons as the, victory. And then it has this, I'm on the path to redemption and ascension. But
right.
only if we make the choices to, like our son is being asked to make, to,
Yeah.
I don't know a better word for it, but I've been calling it adulting, coming into our responsibility, our
Well,
self-responsibility and realization.
we're becoming cosmic adults. We've been cosmic teenagers, as indeed as our son being a cosmic teenager, all of which is great. And we get to muck about and we have all of this thing called free will and karma. And eventually we get to the point where we have to step into being an adult. And we realize that if we're continuing to play that game, it's going to have some bigger repercussions. As a youngster, we're given a fair amount of free scope to live by our mistakes. But once we get to a certain point of we can say in human form age as an adult, then we have to step up and start being more responsible. But unfortunately, because we're so heavily programmed, we often carry on doing the same things that we've been doing as wild hooligan teenagers well into other parts of our life when we should have perhaps been knowing better.
Yeah.
But here's
But
the
we
interesting,
can't. That's
right?
Karsha. We can't do that because if we're set for a galactic rearrangement where we can become co-creators. You cannot be responsible co-creators. You just can't even do it if you're
Yeah.
not at a certain level of realization and development and involvement. And this is what we're being called into.
And you know what, Leslie, something's coming to me because really and truly, this Cazimi with the Venus is happening much more conjunct with this Diptha star, right? And the Scheat is happening much more in conjunction with the Neptune Cazimi. So even though they're still within orb of each other, it's almost like Neptune's hitting Scheat, and that's really what that Cazimi is about. But it's feeling the oncoming presence
That's a good
of
thought.
Diptha, which is going to then hit with the Venus Cazimi. So we can see, like, we can feel the flow of the energy wanting to shape itself through us, through the collective. Yeah, so here we go. This is
Yeah, Venus is at 239. You're right. So then
right,
you're
and Scheat is at 2943, which is almost bang conjunct where Neptune is.
right.
So it feels to me the Neptune Cazimi is more about that interfacing, like we just talked about through
Yeah,
Scheat,
yeah,
whereas the Venus, and we'll look at the Mercury Cazimi in a minute, are about what's next.
yeah,
What
yeah,
is it that
yeah,
my
yeah.
heart wants? My heart wants to be going on dragon missions and helping the whales to repair the morphogenetic
Right.
grid. I want to be a
Like,
Pegasus traveling that grid, you know? That's
yeah,
what my heart wants. Yeah, and maybe
let's
other
take
people too.
responsibility for
Yeah.
and be what we really are made to be.
Yes.
Exactly. So
Exactly.
now we have the Mercury Cazimi on March 24th at 425 of Aries. And I know you have a lot to say about this because of its timing. Go for it.
Ah, well, look, I found this image I mean, Mercury Hermes really is kind of synonymous energy. I love this one. There's lots of stellar nations in that picture. I'm seeing lots of serpent energy, of course, around Mercury. But I love the energy of Mercury because he is very Pegasus. He's very much like Markab in many ways, or Markab rather, and. It's picking up the same stars, but what I haven't really shared so much, because me and Bella are going to go into this in our next Quantum Compass episode, which comes out a few days after this piece that me and Leslie are doing, where we're going to look more into the energy of the Wavespell, which runs interestingly from the 12th to the 24th of March. So the 12th of March is when the Saturn Cazimi kicks the process off.
Oh
And
my
the
God.
24th of March is the final day in this Tzolkin, working with the energy of the yellow star, which we could say is our sun, where he has this message from Mercury on the day of transcendence, the magical 13. So we're finishing this Tzolkin with a message from God or from Mercury or from Markab or from the Pegasus Nation. And I guess what is that message for us, Leslie?
Yeah, well, it's okay. I just want to restate what you said. The Tzolkin is literally a whole process of energies that go through 260 days. And
Yeah.
it starts with a very primal dragon energy and it ends
Yes.
in this radiant stellar energy. So, I mean, I want to emphasize the point, this very last wave spell, which are all these, it's the
Yeah.
rhythmic way of being in creation. Like you said, oh, we can get so tired. This is too much. But once you know, wait, there's a rhythm to this. I just need to sort of match the day to the rhythm. You become a conscious co-creator with your time on Earth, so to
Yeah.
speak. But this is ending. Oh, this is still beautiful. You said that wave spell begins with these Cazimis and ends with it. To me, I hadn't even realized that. That's incredible. So
And
what I want to say, Mercury in Solana's mind, when he set up the solar system, travels quite close to him. Uh, we're told in the stellar nations, whatever is on Mercury, you need to understand is like it's whispering into your ear. It's an amplified message. You need to listen to this. Okay. So all we've got on this, Scheat's not here anymore. I don't think. No, we've
it's
just
it's
got
beautiful, Leslie. I'm getting
Diptha.
the message. I'll let you finish, but my
No, no,
heart
I'm done.
buzzing with what's
We've
coming.
got Diptha, and I put the whale part first. We're starting out on the bridge of redemption and ascension, and we're going to be victorious, or we can be if we make the right choices. I think this whole sweep tells us that. And I'll just finish with the slides. I mean, I was like, okay, guys, it's going to be okay. We were made to make it so. We have to realize that about ourselves. That's what we're finding. When we look
Yeah.
over attachments, that's what we'll find as our new quote unquote persona. Like we're literally picking the fragmented pieces of ourselves, putting them together, restructuring our DNA to be not only the physical DNA, but aware and attached again to our etheric DNA. So we're both at the same time. We know
Mm.
ourselves here, we know ourselves in our light bodies, our stellar worlds, and we become coherent. That's the biggest thing to become coherent. So that's really all I have for slides.
That's good. Well, let's come back to our final wrap up. A couple of thoughts there that came to me really clearly as you were saying that, and so yes, the Tzolkin is a 260-day solar calendar, so it's working directly with the sun, with El Sol Solano. So this is a cycle that he's bringing. We always finish with the star energy. It's always the last wave spell of a Tzolkin, and then immediately after this, Leslie, the next day, the 25th of March, is the beginning of a new Tzolkin, which is the red magnetic dragon, which if we look at Diptha and we think about our restored dragon cells, potentially, then that star is still getting activated by the sun on the first day of the next Tzolkin. So we have that talismanic dragon sign that we can set out now with that dragon wave spell to repair the morphogenetic grids with the assistance of the whales, which is also the restoration of the Christo consciousness grid, the natural intelligence grid, and the dragons are the fundamental building blocks because they're the elemental energies. There are many other things too, but they actually are the elemental energies as we were learning about in Heaven on Earth. And we start that new Tzolkin with the dragon energy, with Diptha sending us the signal. It's all going to be okay. This is going to go well. This is a dragon mission, which kicks off.
I'm going to interrupt you. It can go okay. We still are agents of responsibility.
Thank you.
And actually, I don't know if I said this, but let me just, what the whale does in making it sounding ethereally, they exist etherically as well as on the oceans. Their sounding, maybe I said it, it's the sounding of the divine mind, and it constantly repairs the morphogenic fields around planetary bodies, because we're always breaking that field because we're not always in concert with the divine mind. But no, I agree with you. It's so exciting. That's a beautiful correlation. We're coming into the new Tzolkin, the new time cycle that starts with the dragon energy. It's so important to come off this range of Cazimis and all that they're telling us, to be ready and empowered to plant, be the Pegasus part of ourselves, plant the right seed from the divine mind. The way we start this next journey, this next cycle, is, the first step kind of determines your trajectory. So we're being shown we need to create this trajectory. We've got a lot of inner work to do and assessment to do.
And you're absolutely right, Leslie. I think that's the important point here, is that there is a choice point. That is, Mercury is giving us a potential destination for our dragon selves to say, oh, wow, we can step into that. But if we've avoided the pieces that came with the Saturn Cazimi, then that choice may not be available to us, because if we're still resisting, saying, hey, I want to do that mission, but I don't really want to do the difficult work of confronting why I'm not already able to do that, because some of us can already do that work because we've already done the work with the arthropods. This is about the collective then coming to the person. It's like, yes, this is a collective process. The collective has a choice whether to go with the redemption path, with the return to the light, or not. That's a choice everybody has. Everyone has the option to do their Kjara moment and fall to the knees and say, I surrender. I want to return to all it is and be a part of it. Or they don't. And if they don't, well, then maybe that message that Mercury is giving us and saying, hey, this is the potential mission that will go well if you want to embark on this new laying out of the new Earth foundations with the dragon energy. But you have to have done the other initiations to get into that place so that the divine mind will give you access to the computer board so you can step into it. That is the choice point. And that is why I totally resonate with what Leslie is saying. It's not a given for us as individuals. There's a dynamic interaction here that we all have to step into. And that dynamic interaction starts with total surrender. And from that total surrender, there is trust. And when you fall into the place of trust, your divine self catches you and starts to take you into the flow with the universal time code. And all we have to do is get out of the way of ourselves, drop the fear, see reality for what it is, understand that we've been in an illusion, we've been also in a kind of hall of mirrors, and then the hall of mirrors falls away and the true reality of the new earth and the universal time codes will start to appear to us, first of all, as individuals, but hopefully then as a collective.
Well, no, then we have to do it we only have sovereignty over ourselves. We need to get to the tipping point.
Yeah.
Well, we just need a little bit more. So that's a personal responsibility that we have now. And I remind us the dragons are the warrior part of ourselves that stand up for divine will. And they've got 8 initiations. The first 5 of them are in all the elements, earth, air, fire, water, and ether.
Okay.
That's literally as kind of literally, they're protective warriors who can use those elements in different aspects of their mission. Literally, like if they're in battle and need flames of fire or water. But it's metaphysical too.
Yeah.
So, air, we need to control our thoughts. Water, we need to know how to control our emotions. Fire, we need to know how to direct the determination. Um, what's the other one? What am I missing? Oh, earth.
Ether. Oh,
Earth.
Earth. Yeah.
Earth
Mhm.
is like, yes, we need to know that we're these vehicles that have pranic forces running through us and
Yeah.
that we keep them, we respect them and know that this is a vehicle for the divine. And then ether is really the balance of motion, the balance of all of it. And then we go on, the other dragon initiations are into there's mercy, and the final one is actually on algol, which is a mixed bag. That's a whole other program.
There's a whole other
But
story.
but it's about the algol exists in 2 different ways. It's frozen light for a lot of reasons, but it's also got the potential of being the final pulling the sword of light out of the rock, so to speak, to cut away ruthlessly the illusions that we've been living under that make us less than. So well, I'll leave that one there. But I wanted to bring it up. That's the nature when we say dragon. We have so many thoughts about dragons, and rightfully so. They're incredible creatures that take care of
Mhm.
the earth and the ley lines, and people are meeting them. The people have met them for the last 2 years more and more. Last year in the Stellar Nations was the return of the dragon and the great feline. The two warrior feminine masculine nations completely healed of their patterns on the galactic level, and they've been infusing back into our collective consciousness. That's part of this, all this unrest we're going through is there's such infusions of uh, divine alignment coming from our higher selves that have worked things out, trying to catalyze us into working it out on this dimension. If we work it out on this dimension, oh my God, to move it on this dimension, it literally reflects back into all the galaxy and beyond. I mean, you hear this, that there's literally all the beings around are watching Earth. Earth
It's
is
so true.
actually the planet of redemption, turning around all the karmic patterns. But we're so in the birth canal and will be for, probably a few more years. But I don't mean that in a bad way. We're in the birth canal in a good way. We have to realize these choice points, and we're moving into that tunnel of light and this whole other way of being collectively. Um, and a lot of us are, feeling it now. We're holding a much more and sustaining a kind of a non-polarized consciousness and trying to just be in the third dimension that way. That's our charge. That's about what we need to do, really, honestly. That's right now, take these messages in from these stars, very important choice point. And so we can go forward in the new Tzolkin with a really
Yeah.
good, conscious, informed ability to start to be co-creators uh, in our own lives and in this whatever connector matrix is. And I see people like searching, they think they need to be activists and go out in the street and protest. You can't solve it. That's the planetary level. We need to expand to the noosphere or the stellar consciousness. You don't solve a problem from the level it's developed on. So
Mhm.
the activism is all spiritual inner activism within
Yes.
our own uh, selves, because that's all we have the right to, our own sovereign selves. And then we become like fine-tuned pieces of a puzzle that the divine is putting together. But if our edges aren't all, kind of all worked out, we're just not going to fit together. All right.
To all of that, thank you, Leslie, for that very deep review of everything that we've looked at today. And as you were just saying, all of that, a few bits and pieces were dropping in. And, we asked it in the birth canal, I completely agree. But also, Just want to put into people's awareness when we hear sometimes, oh, it's going to be a few years. I know what that immediately does to most people. Hey, I can kick back for another couple of years.
Mm-mm-mm.
No, it's not about that. What is happening in the birth canal is that Mother Earth cannot ascend until we free the grid that we have placed upon her. Once that's free, then a whole other series of processes are going to happen. But we, as individuals and as a collective species, need to get to that place first. And that is the imperative mission that is upon all of us right now. Because until that happens, we cannot go through the processes that Mother Earth needs to go so that she can ascend. We are the ones holding her in place with the old grid. So I just wanted to put
Yeah.
that in there too. I hope that
And I
makes
also
sense.
want to say, a few years you can feel discouraged. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a few years for
No, it
you.
can happen
For us
tomorrow.
individually, I mean, we could be there right now. In fact, that's
Yes.
the point. A lot of us
Yeah.
need to be there because we need to set
Hmm.
up that energy. It's like a guiding energy. So, like, don't be discouraged by that. Like,
No.
go, hey, man, I'm going for this. So I
It,
can be like, because you know what? We magnetize our quote unquote
yeah.
reality to us. You start resonating on these levels, this is the synchronistic world of magic. We become
Yeah.
more, our daily lives are much more fifth dimensional. And then we bless our situations with that. That's the whole idea. We're meant to be the frequency holders. That's essentially the Pegasus mission. We have that living
Yeah.
flame of light inside of us that, we're just planting and when we go around to catch. It's from the divine mind. So,
So, if we're in this moment, and this is the final point I want to make, is that in order to get to the places where this becomes accessible in your meditation, your fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth dimensional self, it takes some work. It takes, as Leslie says, not an outward protesting and waving placards. It takes an inner rebellion and a collection of bringing all of your pieces together, which is why there is the incredibly profound and powerful Stellar Nations pathway. That is a whole series of initiations into yourself. Then there are other initiations which we've laid out in QPW, the 13 Steps of Creation, a navigation guide to quantum consciousness. And I know that Leslie just completed this too. Heaven on Earth is designed to rebalance your inner elemental energies, working with your dragons and many other beings. These are not just fancy courses that we put out to full time and to, make money. These are initiations that we were given from upstairs for ourselves. And also, obviously, Bayon and Nico brought through the Stellar Nations pathway. And we share them with you because we want you all to be in the place where we are, which is working with all of these energies, seeing things from the fifth, sixth, seventh dimensional perspective. As overseers and guardians, many of us actually are guardians here on planet Earth, and we're trying to elevate the consciousness. We have connected with our universal selves. We can all do this. But if we're sat back on the sofa, cracking open another beer, watching the box set, saying, hey, when is it all going to happen? I'm waiting for someone on the TV to do it. I'm sorry to say you're going to be here quite a while waiting for that to happen. And probably in between, you're going to feel a little bit out. So
well, it's
the
a choice.
emphasis,
You will stay in
it's a
that
choice.
reality. I mean, I
Yes.
do believe everybody talks about bifurcation. There's lots of things you could say. I don't want to get too much into that, but
Yeah, there's some.
we literally will be living in the reality that we decide to align with.
Exactly.
So,
But the,
and
the
that's
the real
okay.
point here is
Maybe,
that, sorry, Leslie, go on.
no, I'm just going to say, I think that we need to have no judgment. We
There's
all
no
have our
judgment at all. No.
developmental cycle, and sometimes, I mean, being in duality is a very necessary step. And sometimes a soul may not be ready to leave it, and that's absolutely
Completely
fine. And
fine.
there's a whole
Mhm.
divine plan for that. So it's okay. But
Well,
our
here's,
choice
yeah,
now is what do we resonate with and where do we want to be?
exactly. In the end, guys, there is no judgment. Everyone has a choice. That's everyone's soul destiny, and we all need to learn to respect all of that. But if we do want to step up and return to light, we need some of that dragon discipline. And I think that the beginning of the Tzolkin is going to give us that sense of the dragons who have a lot of discipline, the Eastern martial arts. Can you sit and meditate every day? Will you do your exercises every day? Will you do your protocols every day? Because that is the key to the keys. But if we're kind of a bit flaky and we're still like, hey, Monday to Friday, Saturday's the day I go shopping, Sunday's the day I watch the football, those are days where you could be sitting in meditation. I mean, honestly, Leslie, I don't know about you, but for me and Bella, we live by this stuff every minute of every day. It's our total life's work. We never switch off. We're always plugged in. We're feeling the flow. We're doing shows like this. We're doing our own inner work. It's not like we say, hey, it's the weekend, I'm going to take some time out, because we're in universal time flow and we've accepted that. We surrendered to that process. We're not in resistance to the universal time codes. But these are choices, these are decisions, and each decision sometimes requires meditation, inwards reflection, initiations of the soul. We're going through soul initiations, and they're initiated by us. Funnily enough, it's us initiating ourselves. And we get to decide when we want to take those initiations. So you can wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, but that kind of time frame is starting to squeeze because, as Leslie says, we're in the birth canal. And so when do we want to birth ourselves into our higher completeness? It's entirely up to us. If you want to wait around and have a bit more suffering, a bit more pain, up to you. I'm not going to judge you for it. Me personally, I let go of this quite a while ago because I was sick of that and I wanted something different. That was my choice. Some of you all know I went through a big
Yeah.
process. Indeed, many of you have too. So I guess, Leslie, that's my final word. So do you have anything you wish to share before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, I can also say, hey, it's really hard if you need to crack a beer once in a while.
Oh,
So no, just
don't
do
get
it.
me
Like
wrong.
you
Sometimes
can
I need to
hold your
sit and
third
drink
and
beer
fifth
too. So
dimensional self. You can basically be in your fifth and go, this is really hard. I'm having a beer.
yeah,
Honestly, you don't have to vacate either. So
no, no, no.
you
Well,
know,
that's the beautiful thing. Once you come back to this place of balance and harmony within yourself, there is no sense of attachment or self-derision about these things. Because sometimes I need a beer too, because it helps me to ground. Sometimes I want to sit and watch the football. Sometimes I need to sit and watch Lord of the
exactly.
Rings or
Well,
something.
here's the deal. When you start to come into like that non-polarized consciousness, you start to discover the beauty in the third dimension.
Yes.
So, it's not like going to the monastery. I don't want to scare people, this self-responsibility, but it is about really taking this seriously. It really helps me to watch it from this larger level,
Yeah.
the arc of evolution, and then I can just go, oh, okay, this is what I got to do. I'll have this beer, but at the same time, I'm going to finish these slides or
Well,
whatever. You
yeah,
know,
exactly. And I think this is the thing in 3D. We can have a taste of this. We can enjoy rich food, but we don't want to eat it all the time. We can enjoy a beer. We can even enjoy a nice glass of wine. But if we're using that as an escapism method because we're not confronting
it's
ourselves,
how
that's
we
where the
use
real
it.
issue.
Yeah, because what really it's about coming into the glory and the celebration of creation. And what could be more beautiful than Earth? And all that's been kind of obliterated by the false timelines and the way the structure. And I think we should end now because we've said a lot and
Yeah.
and we don't want to, thank you everybody who's listened and thank you, David.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, everybody. And the final phrase, Leslie, I want to leave with everybody is something that came into my awareness yesterday, which is called hyper accountability. I love this idea that we are hyper accountable to ourselves, and that is it. We need to be hyper accountable in our thoughts, our speech, and our deeds, because when we start to pay attention to every one of those, we're already a long way into the process that we're talking about. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you, Leslie. Thank you,
Thank
everybody,
you.
for watching. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this. If you've got to this point, please let us know in the comments and we will give you a golden banana as a reward. We love
Oh
handing out
yeah.
golden bananas here on
You're
the
going to get
Better
a
and
big reward. You'll get eaten and turned into the light.
Yes, exactly. It's a magic banana, and you can do with it what you want. But thank you, everybody. I love doing these shows with Leslie. I hope you've got as much value from this progressive process as I know me and Leslie both have. It's just a particular view and filter that we're offering all of you. Take from it what you will, what resonates. And of course, if it doesn't, then just leave it somewhere else. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you all again very soon. Please do check out Leslie's website. We'll put the link in the show notes. Please also feel if you want to go on your initiation path, please do check out QPW. And of course, me and Bella will be back very, very soon with more information on the totality of this Wavespell, the yellow magnetic star. This is it, guys. We're here. We are in the stuff that we came to be a part of, and how we participate is down to each and every one of us. So
Yep.
take it easy. We'll see you all again very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you. Goodbye.